Welcome to the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. My name is Katie Dodd, and I'm a nutrition entrepreneur. I spent 7 years as a side hustler before diving into entrepreneurship full time. Before making the leap, I was bringing in 6 figures through my side hustle. If I can do it, you can too. This podcast is for dietitians, interns, and students who want to be inspired to start or perfect the side hustle of their dreams. Let's do this. Hello, and welcome to the 101st episode of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. My story, side hustler to full hustler. So we just celebrated the 100th episode last week, and I thought, my goodness, what better time for me to share my story? Now, if you've been an avid podcast listener, you probably know a lot of my story, hearing, bits and pieces here and there throughout the episodes, but I thought it was about time for me to really share my whole story, my whole journey from, starting off as a side hustler to now being a full-time entrepreneur. My hope is that it will provide a source of inspiration to you and also to let you guys know anything is possible. So if you are a regular listener of the podcast, and if you're listening to these episodes live, I just want to let you know that I'm actually going to have 2 episodes go live this week and next week. Typically, I do 1 episode per week, but I pre-recorded some episodes and then I ended up having some content that I wanted to go out sooner, so we're getting a little more over the next couple weeks. So let me dive into my story. So I'm going to go way back to when I started my journey, just because I always think that's fun to figure out, how did you become a dietitian? Now, when I first went to community college, I grew up in Redding, California. That's in Northern California, for those of you who don't know. I went to Shasta College. It's a community college because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. My original major was psychology because I wanted to help people. I knew that pretty early on that I loved helping people. Now, I took my first psychology class and was like, I do not want to do that. So then I switched my major to business because I was very fascinated by business. I loved economics, microeconomics, macroeconomics, intro to business, investing. I love these courses. So I was like, I want to be a business major. Was, going along this path for a while, but I just didn't see the connection on how I could help people through business. Although, lo and behold, I'm a business owner and I help people. But at the time, I didn't really see the connection because I always saw business as working for other people. So I ended up taking a random nutrition class. It just was, to fulfill what did we even call them back then? I want to say competency, but to get your associate's degree, you need to get certain, classes in different categories. So I ended up taking a nutrition class because it would fulfill one of those categories. Now, I thought that nutrition was going to be easy. It's like, oh yeah, food guide pyramid, easy peasy. All dietitians giggle a little bit because we know that, nutrition is a science and it is not easy. I mean, hello, biochem, organic chemistry, right? All those tough science classes we've taken along our journeys. So, I went there just because I thought it would be easy. It fit my schedule. But I fell in love. I completely fell in love with nutrition. I learned so much about myself. I was lactose intolerant and didn't realize it until I learned about it. I was like, snap. That explains a lot. I will say at the time too, I was working at a donut shop and I was eating a lot of fast food and I wasn't really exercising. And I was in a situation where I gained a lot of weight really fast. And I started having pain from being on my feet all day because I didn't have the muscle to support the weight that I had gained. And so it was causing some joint pain. I ended up going to see a physical therapist, and really, as I was in this nutrition class, learning about the connection between the food that I was putting in my body and just how it, provides nourishment and physical activity and health and all the things. So I think for me, I had a lot of personal cues between oh wow, I can feel better, not have pain, not have horrific stomach aches, all through the power of food nutrition. So for me, it was kind of personal, but then also seeing man, I could help people. Okay, I'm going to change my major to nutrition. And I ended up finding the closest university I could find, which was California State University, Chico. And I went there as a nutrition major. Now, at the time, like many of us, I had zero idea that I would be expected to do a almost year-long unpaid dietetic internship to become a dietitian. But at that point, I was invested. I wanted to help people, and I wanted to help people through nutrition. So I did my internship, I did my undergrad, graduated from Chico State, and ended up doing my combined master's dietetic internship at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. Now, I will tell you, before I went there, I always thought I was going to work with kids. I thought that I was going to play a role in preventing, diabetes in kiddos. That's what I was really passionate about in undergrad. But as I got into grad school, I started volunteering at the VA. I did 2/3 of my dietetic internship with the Department of Veteran Affairs, fell in love with the mission and vision of VA, which is primarily older adults, not exclusively. There are a lot of younger adults, there are women, there's a mix of people, but the population I was serving was primarily older adults. So that's kind of the direction my career took. I graduated from that program, moved to Southern Oregon, where I currently live. I live in Medford, Oregon, and I got my first job at the Department of Veteran Affairs. Lovely job. It was called Home-Based Primary Care. I worked there for 13 years and have the privilege of serving veterans in their home, working with an interdisciplinary team, and it really was a lovely job. When I would describe it to kiddos, I would always say, I get to go hang out with cool grandmas and grandpas and talk to them about food. And I loved my job. It was great. But kind of where my journey goes from this full-time dietitian, I, fell into this job that I honestly didn't even know it existed. When I applied for the job, I applied for a different job at this VA, but then ended up getting interviewed and placed in home-based primary care, which was a blessing because it was a lovely job. But I'm working this full-time job. I think I've got it made because I got a job at the VA. Wonderful job, amazing healthcare benefits. I had a pension. Not a lot of people have pensions. I was paid well. I had a great boss. I had 3 bosses during my time at VA. All of them were amazing. But I had a really, really good job. And my plan was to work at this VA my entire career until I was 68 and a half years old and retire with my pension. That was my plan. Now, along the way, I think a lot of life things happened. I think, when we're students and we're in school, we think, oh, I'm going to become a professional and make money and life's going to be cake. And then you realize, man, I decided to have kids. Well, they cost a lot. Well, I need to get a place to live. Now I have a mortgage. I still have student loans to pay off. Kids are expensive. I need to get a car. And, we found ourselves in a situation, and we weren't frivolous with credit card debt. My husband and I both had student loans. We each had a car payment, which were reasonable payments, and then we had kids and childcare. Holy cow. It's like another mortgage on your home. I mean, it is crazy how much childcare is. And so we were in the situation where we were literally living paycheck to paycheck. And, here I am. I'm like, I'm making good money. What on earth? It's like adulting became real. I'm like, oh, wait, this isn't going to be this easy peasy walk. This is kind of tough. I still feel like I'm a student, we live in a nicer place. We have cars, all of these things, but we were still living paycheck to paycheck. So how I got into the world of side hustling, I've shared this before, and I don't want to make this episode too long. I know it's going to go long, so that's okay. But I kind of fell into it by accident. I will say I love to volunteer. When I was at Chico State for undergrad at the time, I'm not sure how it is now, but there was this really big, the culture was really based in volunteering. And when I was there, I volunteered so much. I know, for fun on the weekends, we'd go pick up trash. It was just so cool to be part of this community that really valued giving back and volunteering and helping people. So I took that with me as I continued on as a dietitian. I continued to volunteer within the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, within the dietetic practice groups, within the state of Oregon. I currently volunteer within the Commission on Dietetic Registration. So I've been volunteering my entire career. And I love volunteering. I don't know if I will stop, maybe someday, but I love to volunteer and give back and help make changes in big ways and tiny ways. So I had been volunteering for a long time, and through my volunteer role with the DPG, I was at the Food and Nutrition Conference and Expo in Texas. Now, when I was on the expo floor, if you've ever been to Fancy, it's like this massive expo, all of these companies sharing what they do, lots of free swag, lots of free food. You grab all the stuff you just don't need and, stuff it in your suitcase to bring home with you. And after you go to Fancy a few more times, you realize don't do that. But it's a really fun experience on the expo floor. And I met a dietitian there, and her name was Dale, and her tag said Medford, Oregon. And I was like, oh, wow. A dietitian from where I'm from, because it wasn't very common to find other dietitians who were at this event involved in the academy from Southern Oregon. So we ended up connecting on the expo floor, and then, lost track of each other. At Fancy, you meet so many people. It's crazy to be around that many dietitians and RDs to be and DTRs. It's totally crazy. Now, on the way back, I was waiting for my flight from Texas to, I forget where the layover was, but there was a layover somewhere, and then it would go into Southern Oregon. And I saw this lady getting ready to get on the same plane as me, and I'm like, man, she looks familiar. That's weird. We go to our next flight. We are at the layover. Same lady. I'm looking at her and I can't pinpoint where I saw her. I just can't put it together. I get on my plane. I sit down. I make myself settled. Look up. The person sitting right next to me is the same person who I was trying to figure out who is this human. Again, this was Dale. We refreshed our memories of, oh yes, we met on the exo floor. We both live in the same town. It makes sense we're on the same flights. So I ended up having a conversation with her and found out that she was an entrepreneur. She started this amazing company in the 1980s. It was based in continuing education. She ended up, making it this online program as the internet came along. She ended up selling her company, and she was doing really well for herself. And I was just so fascinated talking to her. And I remember asking if I could job shadow her or like learn more about what she does. Cause I'm like, this is just really cool. I want to improve my writing skills. Can I like learn from you? So I gave her my business card. She gave me her business card and she said, email me in a week. I said, okay. In a week, I emailed her. Now, in my signature line, she saw that I was a board certified specialist in gerontological nutrition. Because I primarily worked with older adults, I went ahead and got that certification. So when she saw my email, she ended up telling me that someone who is writing a continuing education paper on geriatric nutrition had it fell through, it just didn't work out with them, and she needed someone to write. And she's like, would you be interested in writing? I was like, heck yeah, I want to improve my writing skills. I want to learn this craft and whatnot. So I ended up doing my first writing gig with her. It was updating continuing education papers. They're only good for like 3 years. So, digging through the paper, what research is new, what research is old, how can we make this even better to provide value to people who purchase it in the future. So I did my first gig with her, and I know this sounds crazy, but I got the contract and I made money for, here's what you have to do. Here's how much you'll get paid. Here's when it's due. And this sounds silly, but I was like so shocked to see that I could get paid for this because I'd been a volunteer for so long. I mean, I would have done this stuff for free just to learn, right? And the fact I was getting paid, I was like, oh my goodness, this is so cool. I proceeded to write paper after paper for this company, and it became my first side hustle. And I fell into it completely by accident because I happened to sit by someone on a plane who was a dietitian. And it's just so crazy when we look back at our lives and see how these one little moments can make such a big difference in the direction of our life. So that's where I started the side hustle. I will say it became a blessing to me because, again, we are a young family living paycheck to paycheck. And as we are wanting to have kiddos, it's like, we had my son and it was really hard to have unpaid maternity leave. And, we were looking at having another kid. I'm like, how are we going to be able to afford for me to stay home on maternity leave? Like if I don't work, I don't get paid. And so having this side hustle was a blessing because it gave me the money to be able to stay home and not stress about money. So I fell into side hustling by accident. I stayed around for the money and the blessing that it provided to my family at a time when money was tight. And I feel like I started getting more and more interested on like, okay, what else can I get paid for? I ended up from there doing webinars. I saw an ad on Facebook from a company called Dietitian Central, who I love, saying, hey, we're looking for speakers. It's like, I speak. I volunteer a lot, right? And through the DPGs, I had done plenty of webinars. Within my job at the VA, I've done plenty of webinars. So I had my first gig where I got paid to do a webinar. From that very first webinar I ever did, the editor of Today's Dietitian, really the only magazine for dietitians, saw or heard about my presentation and had reached out to Dietitian Central and asked for my contact information and offered to pay me to write an article for their magazine. So I ended up getting my first paid gig for writing a magazine article. And I feel like, these side hustles I started getting just kind of started spiraling, right? The more I did, the more I networked, the more opportunities that came my way. So I was side hustling for a while. Now, eventually this company that I really started writing with, they ended up being sold several times, and they kind of started disbanding their program and the opportunity stopped coming. So this was at the beginning of 2019. So I was in a situation of, man, I've really become dependent on these contract gigs and now they're dried up. What am I going to do? Because again, we're living paycheck to paycheck, and this extra money really helped for presents on Christmas, on birthdays, for vacations. Like that's what was allowing us to do these things. And so I was at the situation where I had to start getting creative. Now, that same year, I went to a conference. It was the Oregon and Washington Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics conference. And when I was there, I heard 3 entrepreneurial dietitians speak. And they totally blowed. My mind was blown. My mind was totally blown by what I was learning from them. One was on social media, one was on developing your brand, and the other one was on corporate wellness. But my takeaway was like, companies and businesses out there need what you have to offer. That was my takeaway from them. And I remember I was in Seattle and I was with my dad, and we were on a train after the conference we were riding up to the Space Needle. And in my mind, I was like, I'm an entrepreneur. I never really identified as an entrepreneur because I always thought to be an entrepreneur, you had to work with patients one-on-one. I had zero interest in working with patients one-on-one in my side hustle, outside of my full-time job. That's what I did in my full-time job. I did not want to work with patients. So I never identified as an entrepreneur. Even though I was an entrepreneur, I didn't identify as one. So I think it was during that moment that I'm like, I am an entrepreneur. I'm going to create a brand. I'm going to create a business. I'm going to do my own thing. I had no idea what that would look like. But it was during that, ride on that train that the wheels in my head started churning. And I started dreaming and envisioning, what could this look like for me? What could my future look like? Now, I'll tell you, I thought that my brand name was going to be KD Nutrition, my initials, Katie Dodd, KD, because Katie kind of sounds like Katie. I ended up coming up with this cute little logo. It looked like lemons. Initially, it was like a lemon slice with rainbow wedges. Then it was like 2 lemons, but then that went away. But what I ended up finding out was that someone was using KD Nutrition. And I wanted to make sure no one was using the brand I used. So then I got real creative and I decided to call my business Katie Dodd Nutrition. Easy peasy, right? So fast forward just a couple months later, I was on Facebook and I got this notification that said, Facebook is moving more towards groups. Here's a group you might like. And it was a Facebook group called the Unconventional RD. You might be familiar with them. So I joined this group and I just missed this post that said, join us for a free webinar on how to make money blogging. Now I missed it, but I was like, wait a minute, I need to learn. Like, what? Make money blogging? Tell me more. So I reached out to Erica Jolson, who runs the Unconventional RD, and I asked her, can I get access to the webinar? And she's like, sure, sent me the replay. I watched it. I took a lot of notes. I still have those notes. And I was obsessed. I was like, I must learn more about how I can blog as a business and make money blogging without working with humans. Like, tell me more. So I will tell you, initially, I didn't want to join her program. Her program at the time, the price has gone up. It's still like, it is worth every penny and then some. But at the time, I think it would have been like $300 for her course with this discount she offered during this launch. And I remember thinking, that's too much money. I can't pay $300 for a course. And so I wasn't going to join her course. It was called SEO Made Simple, Search Engine Optimization, just really the bones of how do you make your website found online. So I wasn't going to buy the course. I decided I was going to do everything on my own through Google. I was just going to Google how to do it, and I was going to blog on my own. I'm so glad that's not what I ended up doing, because we would not be here today had I not taken that course. I have a friend named Lindsay McPhail. She is an entrepreneur. She runs a coffee stand or coffee stands called Outsider Coffee. And I remember we were in the car driving together, and I'm telling her about this, this thing I learned about how you can make money blogging. I was telling her about the course. I'm like, oh, but it's so expensive. And she tells me, Katie, this person who's teaching this course is a dietitian, right? I'm like, yeah. She's like, you're a dietitian. She's doing what you want to do, right? It's like, yeah. She said, you need to take the course. So I said, okay, Lindsay. So I signed up for the course. Took the course, completely mind blown. Now, I did have to learn how to create my own website. I built my website. I learned SEO before I even pushed publish. And I really did everything right. And in retrospect, had I done this on my own, I would have done everything wrong. I would have built my website on a free platform, like WordPress or blogspot.katiedodd.com or something like that. And I would have gone so far in the wrong direction that I would have never had success. I would have been burnt out and probably telling people blogging doesn't work. I tried it. It didn't work. When, my gosh, I'm so glad I didn't go that route, right? So I took this course and I was just so mind blown on like, man, when you take a course from someone who's doing what you want to do, You are learning from their successes and you are learning from their failures. So you are like jumping levels. You are jumping levels in success. It's not going to take you as long to do the thing because they're telling you, here's what you do, and you do that. And oh my goodness, it was so lovely. At the time, Erica offered 3 different programs. After I took that one, I took the other 2 without question. I didn't even say like that's too expensive because I'm like, I saw the light. So I created my first blog, which is called The Geriatric Dietitian. I chose that blog because again, I was a geriatric dietitian and it was my jam. And I'm very, very passionate actually about nutrition for older adults, particularly stopping unintended weight loss in older adults, preventing malnutrition and all the things. So I created this website. It went live on my birthday, June 29th, 2019. That was like the release of my first blog article and when I announced that I made this blog. And I was so excited. I was so excited because I was now a blogger. I had my own thing. So from there, I will tell you, I burnt myself out in blogging a couple months in. I got all perfectionist on myself. A lot of you know what I mean. I created all these standards for what I had to do for a blog article. I decided my blog articles had to be like the longest things ever, the most comprehensive, the most research-based. I had to have videos, infographics. Like I made these like impossible tasks in my mind of making this writing an article take forever and be really confusing and really hard and really complicated. I mean, the end product was great, but I burnt myself out. Just a couple months into blogging, I stopped writing. Now, I went a couple months after that, and this was January of 2020, and it was, I set goals every year. I kind of left that out, but I've always been a goal setter. But I decided that I was going to stop putting these darn silly expectations on myself, because it was my business. I could do whatever I wanted. And I was going to aim at putting out 2 to 4 blog articles per month that were good enough. I started embracing the mantra of done is better than perfect. And thank goodness I did, because I started getting content out again. Now, around the same time or a couple months before, I shared in the last episode how I started this podcast, Dietitian Side Hustle. I started it, at the end of 2019. So I had been blogging for a little while, maybe 5 months before I started the podcast. And I started it as a hobby. Never intended to make money off of this brand. I started as a hobby just because I wanted to help people and tell them more about all the cool things that they can do as dietitians like I was doing. So, at this point, I've got my blog. I've got my head on straight with putting out content. I know SEO. I've started investing in myself. I have this podcast. And in January 2020, I also started a business. I started my LLC, which is Katie Dodd Nutrition LLC. And part of that was because in my head, I was making this decision that this side hustle, this blog is not a hobby. This is a business, and I'm going to treat it like a business. I'm going to have a business. I'm going to have a EIN. That's an employee identification number. It's like the social security number for your business. I'm going to have a business bank account. I'm going to do all the things. And I also started diving into the world of business coaching. I took a program that was $97 called the 2120 Healthcare Challenge through my now business coach, Greg Todd. He's a physical therapist. And I took this program and it was, I don't even know how to describe it, but it was like totally eye-opening and it changed my perspective on business and what I thought an entrepreneur was and how I show up and help people. So I ended up, after that, I took a course called Smart Success Healthcare. At the time, my business coach did these cohorts, so I was in the 9th cohort of Smart Success Healthcare. I think it was like $3,700 or something that I paid, which is crazy considering like 6 months prior, I was like, $300 is too much. But I was continuing to change, to evolve, to see things in a different light. I pretty much took every program from my business coach. Now, he did have a mastermind, but it was very, very expensive, and I couldn't afford it. I didn't think I could afford it, if I'm honest. I just didn't think I could. And I remember feeling a little bit of FOMO and thinking like, man, I just want to be in his mastermind. I can't afford it, but man, I really, really, someday that's my big, big dream is I want to be in Greg Todd's mastermind. Did not realistically think it would happen. Sneak peek, I'll tell you about it, but I'm in his mastermind now. But it was something I really wanted, but I didn't think was possible. So fast forwarding again to July of 2020. At this point, my blog is a year old. It is doing very well. I'm getting very close to qualifying for ad revenue on my website, which is like that big whoo for making money on the blog, right? Making big money. So I'm doing well in my business. having fun with Dietitian Side Hustle. I'm learning so much about business and entrepreneurship. I'm working on my mindset so hard. And I end up winning a month of free coaching with Javier Carlin. Javier was in Greg Todd's mastermind. Now, I'd heard him speak many times through Greg's programs, and I really resonated with him. I really liked Javi. And then when I found out that he was engaged to a dietitian named Marissa, I was like, he must have good taste if he's engaged to a dietitian. So I can trust this gentleman. And so I ended up working with Javi. And when we worked together, I won coaching with him for a month. So it was something I won for free. And holy cow, I was going to treat it like I paid $1 million for it. And I did. I showed up, I did the work. And at that time I had a decision. Was I going to work on building out my business for Dietitian Side Hustle or the geriatric dietitian? Now, the story goes, I ended up deciding on going with Dietitian Side Hustle. And I went back and forth on what direction I was going to go, pros and cons of each, because I'm building this great blog based in, the geriatric dietitian. But my heart, you guys, my heart was in helping dietitians, inspiring, building up dietitians and helping them to change the world in big and mighty ways. So I ended up leaning towards Dietitian Side Hustle. And during the 4 weeks working with Javi, we ended up creating, or I should say I always say we because he helped me in the process. I ended up creating my program, which is now my signature program called Blogging Accelerator Program, where essentially I help dietitians replicate what I did with my blog business, helping them to get on the fast track, helping them to avoid all the mistakes I made, reach their goals faster, provide tools, templates, support, resources, accountability, everything they need to have a successful blog business. So I created this program very fast, and my goodness, so much fun. I'm going to say this a couple times probably, but one of the funnest things I've ever done. I love what I do, so I say that a lot about things. But it was so much fun to have my first cohort, I think it was like 9 or 10 dietitians, and it was so much fun to be able to teach them, to be able to help them, to be able to support them in their journey. And I was in love. I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So Blogging Accelerator Program was born at that point. So I'm going to keep fast forwarding from here. I did a couple of cohorts of my program. I did end up working with Greg Todd. He kind of changed how he did his mastermind. At the time, it was a year-long mastermind, which was very expensive. Well, $15,000 is what it was. That was the price I thought was like totally unattainable for me. But he went through a couple changes. He stopped coaching for a while. He came back and decided to do quarterly cohorts, which were a lot more affordable. And I say that with air quotes. But again, my mindset is changing. It's shifting. I'm starting to help people in big ways to make money. All these things are changing. And so I ended up working with Greg for 2 quarters in this quarterly mastermind, which was, not crazy expensive. I think it was like, I want to say about $3,000 a quarter or something. It wasn't that much money in the scheme of things. But so fast forward to June of 2021. So we're about a little bit under a year ago from where I'm at right now recording this episode. So it's June of 2020 and Greg has a live event, Smart Success Healthcare Live. It was put off 2 times because of the pandemic. We're finally there in person. I got to meet my mentor for the first time. I'm so excited. I got to meet my mastermind friends who I had been in a group with for 2 quarters, so for 6 months. And it was such an amazing event. I got to speak on the stage. I got to be around all these inspirational entrepreneurs who were doing amazing things. And at the time, I felt like such a small little whatever I am, I just felt like I'm just this little tiny fish in the pond of all these amazing big fish. And this is so cool that I'm in this room and that I get to be around these humans and they inspire me and they make me believe in myself. So towards the tail end of this event, Greg makes an offer for a year-long mastermind, and I know I have to do it. And then he says the price, $30,000. For reference, in 2019, my side hustle made $7,000. The previous year, so in 2020, my side hustle made about $33,000. So here we are 6 months into the next year, and I have this opportunity to invest $30,000. I'm like, that is so much money. That is so much money. Remember, just 2 years prior, I was like battling investing $300 in a course. Now here I am, $30,000. I joined. I did not have the money. I put it on a credit card. Now I was a little nervous because y'all know credit cards have really high interest rates, but I put it on a credit card. My business coach always says, when you pay attention. His business coach, one of them, Myron Golden, told him, one of the best things I could ever do for you is charge you a lot of money, because you're going to show up, you're going to do the work, you're going to pay attention. And Greg said that to me as well. And, I feel like my journey it like blows my mind still. I'm like, what happened? Like, how did this happen? So I put this money on a credit card, and before the credit card cycle was due, because, it's a little bit over a month, like it cuts off and then you have a certain date when it's due. But by the time the first bill came, I was able to pay off that debt in full. In full. So I did not have to pay any interest on that credit card. Now, when I invested in this program, I knew I was going to do big things. I just didn't know how big they were going to be. I always talk about setting big, audacious goals, and I think I set big, audacious goals, but I'll tell you that the things I've accomplished are even bigger than I could have imagined, and I'm just mind blown again and really excited for what's coming next. But, at the time, I was working full-time. Loved my job at the VA, loved it, but I loved my side hustle more. I loved helping dietitians more. And so I remember when I signed up for the year-long mastermind, $30,000 is a lot of money. So I was like, okay, well, I'll probably leave my full-time job maybe in 3 years. And then if I'm going to be really big, crazy, audacious, maybe a year. I did not believe that was possible. But that was my big, crazy, audacious goal, was leaving my job in a year. So going along with this mastermind, paid off that bill really fast. I'm doing great in my business. With this mastermind, we meet quarterly in person in Florida. So this is now September of 2020. We're meeting in person. And in my mastermind, we always have an ask for the group. Like pick each other's brains, support each other, all the things. And so my ask was, how can I continue to improve Blogging Accelerator program? How can I continue to help dietitians build blog businesses? Now, the answer I was not expecting. Their answer was, you need to leave your full-time job. I was like, I did not ask that question, but that was the answer I got. And I will tell you, it's kind of fun because this meeting was actually recorded and I was able to go back and watch it. And it's really funny watching the process in my brain and how everything unfolded, because I had so many limiting beliefs. I was like, well, I cannot leave my full-time job because X, Y, and Z. And every excuse and reason I had on why I had to stay in my job, my mastermind friends lovingly removed those limiting beliefs. Well, I make a lot of money. You can make more in your business. Well, I've got good health care insurance. You could pay for your own health care insurance. But I've got a pension. You could invest on your own. Like, all of these doubts I had, like, it was totally crazy. I will tell you, I had so much resistance in that meeting. I did not say I was going to leave my job. I was like, I hear you. But in my head, I told myself, I'm going to do this. I have no idea how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do this. And I told myself that day, 2021 is going to be the last year I ever work at the VA. I had 3 months till the end of the year. I had no idea how this was going to happen, but it's something I told myself. I wrote it down and I believed it. The next day I had the courage to tell some of the people in my mastermind at dinner. I was like, okay, you guys, I'm in 2021, last year I ever work at the VA. Now I was flying home from Florida to Oregon, 2 flights to get home. It's a long day of travel, but a lot of good time to brainstorm. Flight home, I ended up brainstorming, okay, here's what it's going to take for me to leave the VA. Here's what it's going to take for me to sustain being a full-time entrepreneur. Now, I've shared a lot of this in other episodes, so if this is, a little bit of a repeat, I guess that's okay. But, I went home, I presented this plan to my husband, and he's a little bit like me, kind of terrified, but he's like, I believe in you. I'm like, okay, good. I'm glad one of us does. So one of my plans was I wanted us to finish paying off our remaining debts. We didn't have a lot at the time. It was paying off, I think, his truck and his student loan. And then I wanted to have enough money in savings to cover 6 months worth of VA paychecks. I felt comfortable with that, right? So if things don't go as planned, I got 6 months of backup, right? And so I made this plan and I met it, you guys. I met the plan. Beginning of January, I went in and I turned in my letter of resignation to my boss. It was so surreal. I have this really fun selfie with him. I adore my boss. He was a wonderful boss. And so I have this nice selfie of me, we're posing for it, right? But holding my letter of resignation, and it's just a really sweet letter or picture that I have, and a great memory that I was able to like remember that moment. And I did give my work a month notice because I wore a lot of hats at the VA and I wanted to make sure that we could, it was really important to me. I loved my job and I wanted to make sure that my transition was a good one, right? So my last day at the VA was December 29th, 2021. And it was a weird day. It was the holidays, so no one was around. It's in the pandemic, so we can't have a going away party. It was like, it very seldom snows in Southern Oregon, but it had snowed, and so there's snow on the ground. And so anyways, if you follow me on Instagram at Dietitian Side Hustle, I actually shared a reel because I recorded me walking out the door my first day, walking into campus, walking into the building, walking into my office, logging out of my computer, leaving work. Like, it was the most surreal day because, again, I am, well, I'm now 39, but I was 38 when I quit. And my intention was to work till I was 68 and a half. So I wasn't planning on leaving for 30 more years. And to leave that early was like the most surreal thing ever. But you guys, 2021 was the last year I ever worked at the VA and will ever work at the VA or will ever work for anyone. And you know, a lot of my why, and I know this is me trying to tell my whole story in a time period that is not going to exceed an hour. Let's see if I can speed up here. But I do have a vision board. I'm a big fan of goal setting. I'm a big fan of having a vision board, putting these big audacious goals, not just on paper, but like a visual of them and looking at them all the time. So I have this vision board up, and you know, one of them was a clip art of someone turning in their letter of resignation. I will tell you, I took that picture that I took with my boss, Steve, of me handing him my letter of resignation, printed it out, put it over that on the vision board. I'm like, made that happen. Now, another picture I had on my vision board was a clip art of a dad dropping his kiddo off at school and waving to them. Now, I worked 4/10s, so I worked from 6:30 to 5 o'clock, Monday through Thursday. It was great on Fridays because for the longest time I could pretend like I was a stay-at-home mom one day a week. And then once they were in school, I had time to work on my side hustle as I was building this business and this brand. But the thing about working that early is that I never had the chance to bring my kids to school or see them in the morning. And it sounds like such a small thing, but when you're not able to do it, it just... You know, it's like you just start feeling like, man, I wish I could do that. I wish I could bring my kids to school and not have to take time off. My son, he's 11 years old, and he's going to be going to middle school soon. The middle school is a mile away, lots of roads with no sidewalks, and there's no school bus. And even in my mind of like, how am I going to get my son to school? You know, I can't drive him to school because I have to be at work. And so one of my whys, one of my goals was to be able to drop my kids off at school, you guys. So the very next Monday, after I had, you know, quit my job, well, actually, I don't think it was a Monday. Was it a Monday? There might have been the next day. I think that might have been around the holiday, so maybe it was a Tuesday. But regardless, I was able to bring my kids to school for the first time as a full-time entrepreneur. And I remember how much that moment meant to me. And when I dropped them off in the school line, I had this photo I took. It's my daughter Emily waving goodbye to me. My son is there. He was 11 and way too cool to be waving to his mama in the school drop-off line. So he's not in my photo, but he is there in spirit. And, you know, went home, printed off that picture, put it over my vision board, made that one happen. Because this goal and vision that I had with leaving my job, it wasn't just about leaving my job, because I like my job, but it was about being able to be more present with my kids, more present with my family, do things that I love. And if I'm honest with how hard I was working towards the end, because I wasn't just a single side hustler. I wasn't just doing one thing. I was blogging as a business. I was doing webinars. I was building this brand, Dietitian Side Hustle, doing blogging accelerator program. So I had a lot of side hustles. In addition to my full-time job, being a mom, having a life, all the things. And if I'm honest, had I kept going at that pace for too long, I would have burnt myself out. So leaving was the right choice. And, you know, and I don't have all the numbers in front of me, and sometimes my brain forgets things, but I remember it took me like around a month to generate as much income as I made in an entire year at the VA. And I made 6 figures at the VA. So all of these big fears I had about leaving my job and how my job is safe, my job is secure, I can't possibly do this on my own, like, they were all just fears. They didn't come to fruition. I was able to, you know, do these crazy, crazy things. I mean, my goodness, I've only updated my finances through July, but in July, it's like I've already made more money in my full hustle now, right? It's not a side hustle anymore. I've already made more money, you know, this first half of the year than I did in the entire last year with my full-time job and my 6-figure side hustle. So it's totally mind-blowing to me, but I'm a full-time hustler. I'm a full hustler. I don't even know what you call me. I'm a full-time entrepreneur. So side hustler to full hustler. And, you know, I have to tell you, this is my 8th month of being a full-time side hustler, and I can't even believe to begin to describe to you guys how grateful I am to be in this position. If you guys want to know what my days look like, most days I like to wake up early. Most days I will wake up around 5 o'clock. In the first hour, if you've ever read the 5 a.m. Club, that's what I do. I do about 20 minutes of exercise, typically on that Peloton right behind me. I do 20 minutes of reading my Bible, prayer, and meditation, and then I do 20 minutes of reading a professional development book. So before my day's even starting, I feel good, mind, body, spirit. I'm ready to rock and roll. Get my kids off to school, then it's summer right now, so it's a little bit different. But I typically go to the gym with my dad. My dad is 71 years old, and we work out almost every day together when it's not summer vacation with kids. And for me, that's such a joy and privilege because I know my dad's not going to be here forever, and I'm so grateful for these moments that I have with him, and that at a time that I normally would be in an office, I'm able to work out with my dad. Get home probably around 9 o'clock, start my day. Every day looks different, you guys. I love what I do so much. I'm going to go on a tangent, then I'm going to come back. But I feel like this isn't work. Like, I literally feel like this isn't work. When it's your own business, you got to pay taxes and you got to be ethical. Other than that, you can do what you want to do. You don't have to do the stuff you don't want to do, and if there's something you have to do in your business, you just hire someone to do it. If you don't want to do it, there's, workarounds for everything. But I literally feel like I've been on vacation for 8 months because everything I'm doing now, I was doing for fun, right? It was a side hustle for a long time. And then, I started treating it as a business, but I've created this business that I love that does not feel like work. It brings me so much joy, and I don't even feel like I'm working. I feel like I've been on vacation for 8 months, and I'm so, so grateful. So I start work around 9. Every day looks different. I love it so much, but I try to have things wrapped up by the time my kids get off school so I could be present with them. I do have some things in the evening just because most of my audience, side hustlers, and I will try to do things after 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time so that everyone's off of work when I do events or when I do calls or different things for my programs. And, June 2021 was just a couple months ago, and I had the opportunity again to invest in this year-long mastermind with my business coach Greg Todd. I did it without hesitation, because had I not invested that $30,000, I would not be in the situation right now. And it's such a surreal place to be. And like I said, aside from all these tangents I'm going on because my brain is so scattered right now, but I'm in a weird situation of actually living my dreams. But it's more than that, because what I'm living right now is beyond my wildest dreams. These big audacious goals I thought I set before, it's nothing compared to this life that I'm living now, where I get to be present with my kids, with my family, to have time freedom, to have financial freedom, to take care of my physical health, my mental health, my spiritual health, to do things that I love, to feel like I'm on vacation, to truly love life and not have to wait till I'm retired to live it. So I'm grateful. I am so, so grateful for this journey I've been on from side hustler to full hustler. I will say, when I made the decision to leave my job, I did feel a little bit of identity in being the dietitian side hustler, right? Like, that was my brand name and that's what I did. And I took a lot of pride in being a side hustler. But I'm glad I let go of that pride and any bit of ego I had in that, because being a full hustler for me is this is what God put me on this earth to do. And I'm grateful that I get to be here and to do this. So I feel like at this point I'm kind of going in circles, but that is my journey, you guys. That is my journey from becoming a dietitian, getting a job at the VA, thinking I was going to stay there forever, falling into side hustling by sitting next to someone on a plane, working for other people, that opportunity leaving, going to a conference, being super inspired, deciding I am an entrepreneur, paying for my first course, starting a blog, starting a podcast, investing in a business coach, radically changing my mindset, my belief, showing up, doing the work, creating a program to help other people, investing money I did not have into a year-long mastermind, trusting my mastermind friends to quit my job, left the VA, am now a full-time entrepreneur, and am absolutely loving life. So that's my journey. That's my story. And I hope that was helpful to hear it all in one. I know this is a long episode, especially of me just talking about myself, but I hope that it is a source of inspiration for you. And I really want you to know that you could be living your dreams too. Actually living your dreams to the point it makes you want to cry because it's something you didn't think was possible. It is possible, you guys. And That's why I have this brand, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I want to help dietitians to not just start and perfect the side hustle of their dreams, but to do what they want to do, whether or not that's a side hustle or a full hustle or whatever it looks like for them. I just want to see you guys living your dreams, having joy in the everyday, and living out, God's purpose for your life. So all that to say, it is August 2022, and I am so excited to announce that my 9th cohort of the Blogging Accelerator program is launching on August 29th. Now, this is my signature program where I help launch dietitians into the online space, making multiple streams of income, passive income, through blogging without working with patients. Now, this program, you guys, I will say it starts with a course. It's got to launch you into the online space somehow. You got to learn how to blog, how to build traffic, how to make money, all the things. But it's more than a course. It is a lifetime access program. You have lifetime access to a community, to the programs, to the resources, which I continue to add to help support you on your long-term blogging as a business journey. Whether or not you just want to have a blog side hustle, that's how I built mine. And had I chosen to stay as a blog side hustler, it could have been a lovely side hustle. We also know that there's dietitians who are full-time bloggers, so there's lots of opportunities, whether or not you're looking for a side hustle or a full hustle. But blogging is such a wonderful way to make massive impact, to make money, to have fun, to do it on your own time. But this program, you guys, it provides lifetime support. We have over 130 dietitians in this program, RDs to be, NDTR, a couple other healthcare professionals sprinkled in there. But it is the most lovely community. There is support. There are programs, resources, just really everything you need to have success long term. So the doors have been closed for a little bit, which is why I'm so excited the doors are opening again. So if you've been thinking about joining Blogging Accelerator program, or if you're just hearing my story and you're like, okay, I want in, I want to start something, I would love to talk to you. I would love to talk to you more about whether or not this program is the right fit for you right now, and whether you are ready to go all in to start blogging as a business. So if you would like to learn more, easiest place to go, katiedodd.com. It's my link tree and it has all the links. But if you want to chat with me specifically, I love talking to you guys. If you want to chat with me specifically, go to blogstrategycall.com. You can find that on my link tree at katiedodd.com. But if you go there, there's an application. It's pretty easy to fill out, and we'll schedule a call and we'll hop on a call and have a conversation. But you will be hearing more from me through social media, through the podcast, through email marketing about the 9th cohort. And I hope that I get the opportunity to work with you, because once we start working together, you guys, this is long term. So thank you so much for listening to me on this journey. Thank you guys for coming with me on my journey. So many of you have been along for the ride. I love hearing from you guys. Always feel free to reach out to me on social, email, all the things. I appreciate each and every one of you. And I can't wait to hear your stories. I can't wait to hear the stories that you already have experienced and the ones that you're going to create as you continue to just really pursue your dreams. So have such a wonderful day, and we will chat next week. Bye, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to learn more about how we can work together, go ahead and go to www.katiedodd.com to learn about all of the ways that we can work together.